What happened in Germany was a tragedy, but definitely avoidable. Now we do want to cover this carefully, as 1, the police officer involved did lose their life, but 2, the German officials and the media are both intent on suppressing not only what happened, but why it happened, which makes me think they're somewhat complicit if this happens again. As in Mannheim, Germany, an anti-Islam demonstration is attacked by a man in a black jacket and a green shirt with a knife, as he successfully slashes several men in blue. They are eventually able to stop the attacker, but from another angle you can see them pummeling the attacker on the floor, and that's when a police officer runs in and tackles a man in blue that was just being stabbed, which gave the attacker enough time to recover, get back up, and stab the cop. To which another officer fires on the attacker, ending him, but as the man in blue clears a knife, the police begin tending to the attacker while handcuffing the man in blue. Now the officer did lose their life, and I genuinely want to be sensitive to that, but this scenario just encapsulates so much of what is wrong with Western society today, as every step of the way it just seemed like the cops were more intent on protecting the actual attacker, as they didn't base their actions on what was happening in front of their faces, but on who they've been conditioned as the bad guy, because no matter who the actual aggressor, or in this case murderer is, being classified as far right is somehow far worse, as nearly every news outlet covers a story focusing on how the anti-religious activist was stabbed, but never making reference as to who did the stabbing or how they also stabbed a cop, as Sky News finally reported on the officer that passed, but framed it as if it was the far right's fault. But at least the X-Community notes addressed who actually committed the murder, but it didn't stop the other outlets from protecting the identity of only the attacker. No matter how much you despise the corporate mainstream media, it's simply not enough, as this is a prime example of them choosing to protect their narrative over the people, as they constantly refuse to report on anything that challenges their beliefs even in the slightest, regardless of how many more victims this may create, as Germany has been having issues with newcomers committing knife attacks, and this terrifies the media and political leaders, not the knives, but that this gives rise to conservative groups marching with signs that roughly read, "The East stands together, German youth demands remigration, and their city is fed up," to which is a growing movement amongst Germans when it comes to immigration. And they even have an anthem singing Ausländer raus that apparently says, "Foreigners out, Germany is for the Germans," that even gets played in their nightclubs now, to which reportedly could land them 3 to 5 months in prison for the crime of incitement, which sounds a whole lot like the story in Ireland we covered, where a bunch of kids were stabbed by a newcomer, riots and looting ensued, and then the media specifically blamed the far right. Now, are there outright racists within these movements? Absolutely there is, but I imagine a majority of them are just average citizens that want to address the uptick in knife attacks in their cities, as I too am an immigrant, but when I see protests like these, I know they're not targeting me, as I'm not out there doing stabbing sprees in the name of whatever religion I choose to believe. As most citizens aren't against regular controlled immigration, they're just against mass movements of people with zero expectations of cultural assimilation. And for these media outlets and politicians to see a man randomly slashing citizens and the police in the name of their beliefs, and then thinking, we can't criticize that guy because then we're criticizing all immigrants, just shows that they can't tell the difference between the attacker and regular law-abiding immigrants like me, which is the ultimate form of the soft bigotry that is low expectations. And although I'm talking about specific incidents that took place in Germany and Ireland as if it applies directly to me, in a way it does because it's happening everywhere, as London is also experiencing similar attacks, with Spain also seeing scuffles with machetes in their streets. And just under a year ago, we covered how Spain particularly was receiving large amounts of newcomers pouring into their beaches, to which more recently, California started seeing similar activity. And as the Biden administration has done absolutely nothing to address our porous borders to the south, apparently Biden may make it worse as he's beginning to grant mass amnesty to his newcomers. And nobody's claiming that every single one of those 350,000 people are going to commit crimes stateside. It's just that we have zero verification on if they're even currently on one of our watch lists, as immigration is great, but only if you have the proper controls in place. And once they took that away, it somehow spiraled into conveniently ignoring whenever horrendous crimes occur for the sole purpose of preserving the narrative that unchecked mass migration has zero drawbacks, which eventually results in incidents where the police see mass stabbing sprees series, but immediately sprang into action to arrest the far-right activists, which tragically cost that cop his life. And their media somehow saw that scenario as an acceptable sacrifice, as they went right back into protecting their narrative, even if it will cost more lives. So if you appreciate my concise commentary, hopefully I've earned your subscription, because apparently everybody else is afraid to tell you what's really going on out there.